Good morning. I'm Dan Garodnick, Chair of the City Planning Commission and Director of the Department of City Planning. Welcome to today's public meeting of May 10th, 2023. We're going to start with a few votes before moving on to today's public hearings. The Commission will vote on the acquisition of new ADA accessible office space at 630 9th Avenue for Manhattan Community Board 4. In Queens, we'll vote on a commercial overlay that would allow for a proposed building with ground floor retail, offices for an architectural firm, and community facility space in an otherwise residential zoning district at 189-10 Northern Boulevard in Auburndale. And in Staten Island, along with votes on two zoning subdivisions at 7 Ballard Avenue and Lot 70 on Murray Street, we'll vote on a new playground, bioswales, and tree plantings at PS 005 in Huguenot, Staten Island. Switching gears now to our public hearings, the Commission is welcoming testimony on the Warner Street commercial development, a proposal to turn an empty lot into a two-story building with a mix of office and retail in Charleston, Staten Island, near the Outer Bridge Crossing. If approved, the project would create around 170 jobs. Sticking with commercial projects, the public is invited to testify on York Studios. Located at 1400 Story Avenue, this development would expand TV and film production to Soundview in the Bronx, and it would add around 280 jobs and create new open space along the Bronx River waterfront and with connections to Soundview Park. Moving to Brooklyn, the Commission will hold a hearing on a residential building at 1656 West 10th Street in Bensonhurst. That would create 27 homes, about a quarter income restricted. Located near the N, Q, and W trains and Seth Low Playground, this transit-oriented project would include a community facility. Also in Bensonhurst, the public can testify today on another transit-oriented housing proposal with 100 homes, 30 of them income restricted, plus ground floor retail, located at 7120 New Utrecht Avenue. The project would be next to the 71st Street D train stop and Lieutenant Joseph Petrosino Playground. So, with that by way of intro, Sarah, let's get right to it and get into this meeting.
Good morning. This is the City Planning Commission public meeting held remotely through the NYC Engage portal and in person in the CPC hearing room, 120 Broadway, Lower Concourse. Today is Wednesday, May 10th, 2023. I will now call the roll. Chair Garodnick.
Here.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Here.
Commissioner Benjamin.
Present.
Commissioner Bozarg.
Here.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Here.
Commissioner Crowell. Commissioner Duick.
Here.
Commissioner Gold.
Here.
Commissioner Goodrich.
Here.
Commissioner Kermani.
Here.
Commissioner Marin.
Here.
Commissioner Osorio is absent. Commissioner Rompershot.
Here.
A quorum is present. The first item is the approval of the minutes of the public meeting of Wednesday, April 26, 2023.
Great. On the minutes, I make a motion to approve the minutes of April 26th. There's a second from Commissioner Marin. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Minutes are approved.
Scheduling. Calendar numbers 1 through 4. We have resolutions for adoption scheduling Wednesday, May 24th, 2023 for a public hearing to be held in person in the CPC hearing room, 120 Broadway, and remotely through the NYC Engage portal.
Great. On the resolutions, I make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
The Vice Chairman seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Resolutions are adopted.
The next part of the calendar is the report section on page 6. Borough of Manhattan, calendar number 5, 630 9th Avenue, CB4 office space, N230111PXM, and the matter of an application for a notice of intent to acquire office space concerning 630 9th Avenue, Manhattan Community Board 4 office space. For a favorable report on calendar number 5, Chair Garodnick.
Aye.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin.
Aye.
Commissioner Bozarg.
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Duick.
Yes.
Commissioner Gold.
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrich.
Yes.
Commissioner Kermani.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Commissioner Rompershot.
Yes.
A favorable report has been adopted on calendar number 5. Borough of Queens, calendar number 6, 189 10th Northern Boulevard Commercial Overlay. CD 11 C 220218ZMQ in the matter of an application for a zoning map amendment concerning 18910 Northern Boulevard Commercial Overlay. For a favorable report on calendar number 6, Chair Grodnick.
Aye.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin.
Aye.
Commissioner Bozark.
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Duick.
Yes.
Commissioner Gold.
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrich.
No. And briefly, it is because I share the community board's concerns about the original agreement.
Commissioner Kermani.
Yes.
Commissioner Mudden.
Yes.
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Yes.
A favorable report has been adopted on calendar number 6. Borough of Staten Island, calendar number 7, PS 005 Richmond Huguenot Expansion Phase 2, CD3 N230260RAR, and the matter of an application for the grant of an authorization concerning PS 005 Richmond Huguenot Expansion Phase 2. For the adoption of calendar number 7, Chair Grodnick.
Aye.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin.
Aye.
Commissioner Bozark.
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Duick.
Yes.
Commissioner Gold.
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrich.
Yes.
Commissioner Kermani.
Yes.
Commissioner Mudden.
Yes.
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Yes.
Calendar number 7 has been adopted. Borough of Staten Island, calendar numbers 8 and 9, CD3. Calendar number 8, N230240RCR, 7 Ballard Avenue. Calendar number 9, N230205RCR, Murray Street, Lot 70. And the matter of applications for the grant of certifications concerning 7 Ballard Avenue and Murray Street, Lot 70, for the adoption of calendar numbers 8 and 9. Chair Grodnick.
Aye.
Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Benjamin.
Aye.
Commissioner Bozark.
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Duick.
Yes.
Commissioner Gold.
Yes.
Commissioner Goodrich.
Yes.
Commissioner Kermani.
Yes.
Commissioner Mudden.
Yes.
Commissioner Ramprashad.
Yes.
Calendar numbers 8 and 9 have been adopted. The next part of the calendar is the public hearing section on page 8.
Great. Thank you very much. We're going to get into it for calendars 10 and 11. I'm going to ask you, Madam Secretary, to introduce this item. For those who are testifying, it's ordinarily going to be a 3-minute opportunity, unless there's an applicant team at play. Madam Secretary, please introduce the first items.
Borough of Staten Island, calendar numbers 10 and 11, Warner Street Commercial Development. CD3, calendar number 10, C140316ZSR, calendar number 11, C190188MMR. Public hearing and the matter of applications for a special permit and a city map amendment concerning Warner Street Commercial Development.
Excellent. And on behalf of this application, we have Adam Rothkrug, who is joining us by Zoom. So we're going to give him a moment to get set up and ready. And Mr. Rothkrug, when you are all set, well, let's see. It looks like we can see you, and we can hear you. So, all right. So it sounds like you're ready. So please proceed.
Great. And if you can go to page 2. Good morning, Chair Grodnick, members of the Commission. Adam Rothkrug on behalf of Veterans Realty Corp. for a series of actions to facilitate construction of a new commercial development on a single property currently vacant at 3040 Veterans Road West in the Charleston neighborhood of Staten Island, District Number 3. The actions would facilitate a commercial development consisting of 2 buildings, a retail office building with about 47,000 square feet and a smaller pad store about 2,800 square feet with off-street parking 467 cars. If you go to page 3, the development site is an irregularly shaped parcel, just over 100,000 square feet in area, currently vacant, located in an M11 zoning district within the Special South Richmond Development District. The actions to facilitate the proposed development are an amendment to the city map to map Warner Street, which is just on the west side of the development, approvals to waive cross-access connections, special permit to permit a retail store in excess of 10,000 square feet, authorizations for modification of topography, and authorization to permit parking for more than 30 cars. If you can scroll ahead to 15 and 16, some of the photos of the current vacant property. The development consists of 2 buildings with street level parking for 111 cars and cellar parking for the offices, consisting of 56 cars. Access will be from a new curb cut along Veterans Road West and 2 new curb cuts along the newly constructed Warner Street. Total FAR of about 0.49 is proposed, where 1.0 is permitted in the underlying M1 district. Warner Street is currently a record street, but unbuilt and unmapped. It'll be a dead-end street, 35 feet in width, 448 feet in length. And if you can go ahead to 22, page 22 of the presentation. Ingress and egress to the proposed development will be from a 30-foot two-way curb cut along Veterans Road West at the easterly end of the property and 2 curb cuts on Warner Street. The cross access, if we can get ahead to 22 and 23, you can see the vacant parcel now. Here you can see why the cross access is not possible. The white box buildings on the right are actually the adjacent property, so that providing cross access onto that property to the west would be impossible because there are buildings there. At the end of Warner Street along the northerly lot line, there's a change in grade in excess of 15%, which makes it impossible. And doing a layout of the building because of this irregular P-shaped property would make providing any kind of retail buildings and the parking impossible to provide the cross access also. There's happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Okay, great. Well, let me see. I'm sure there are some questions from commissioners, but let me just ask one to kick it off here. Tell us a little bit about this, the mapping of Warner Street itself, the current situation, what the future will hold here, and just lay it out for us a little bit in greater detail.
Sure, it's interesting because I think this is only the second private mapping I've seen in 50 years. The last one you approved recently in connection with the Cole Street development. But Warner Street is a record street. It is adjacent to our property. We needed to provide access. And as part of this application, the city recommended that it be mapped. So it will be added to the city map as a public street. It will, for the time being, will only service really our development. It will be paved and improved to DOT standards and will include drainage as per DEP requirements. The property immediately to the west of us is city-owned property. So if that is ever developed, we would expect sidewalks, but we'll have a new sidewalk on our side of the property. And as noted, it'll include 2 curb cuts, which will one provide access to the parking lot and above grade parking. And the second curb cut will provide access to the underground parking for the office space. And this will eliminate some of the traffic, or, certainly just all the traffic emptying on and out of Veterans Road.
Thank you very much. Let me go to Commissioner Gold.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. Just a quick question in there. Thinking about that area, what type of retail does the developer sponsor envision? And also, it's a less, you see the view of 15,000 feet of office, it's a less natural area for office space. Is there some thinking there as to where that demand might come from?
Well, we've been in this process for several years, so that I think the thinking may have stopped. But we do have the Tides development in Charleston, which again has a significant senior population, and we think that this will offer some convenient stores and a built-in will be a complement to that as well. We've sought the special permit to allow retail uses over 10,000 square feet, which will give us more flexibility in being able to rent. There is a supermarket nearby, but again, that's always a potential user, as well as local retail. With regard to the offices, everything from medical offices to a single user. There is not that much office space. Development of this may still be 2 years down the road. So we're planning for the future, and we don't have anyone signed up. As I said, we've probably been in this process for 3 or 4 years now, so hard to get any commitments on that kind of time frame. But we're excited to proceed with it after all this time.
Got it. And then when you think about job creation, I mean, it sounded like, I think the number was 100 or so. What type of jobs do you envision?
Yeah, actually, I think it was 170 jobs, which is pretty good. A lot of them will be, retail jobs, obviously for the retail stores, and again, creating office space, may lead to creation of new businesses looking for convenient space at this location. We are convenient to the outer bridge, so we have access to Jersey as well. So hopefully we'll steal some people from there.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just note we've been joined by Commissioner Crowell on Zoom, and we're going to Commissioner Goodrich.
I have between a question and a comment. I was trying to gather it together, but before you leave, I guess I think the first thing I was thinking of was the number of parking spaces. We've had a bunch of projects here where we're trying to minimize parking spaces, but I think my thought process was it's Staten Island, so it probably, it's not as transit rich. I've only been to Staten Island once, so am I right? You're right. Okay. All right.
Especially this part.
All right. Thank you.
It's a nice island.
I
I recommend it. There are a lot of good restaurants and historical visits and beaches as well. So
it's a great borough. There's a lot happening, and
I'll host a nice. We'll host something.
Commissioner, Cerullo, I think needs to bring us all out there for an official. Whether that's a Danino's or something, we'll take the S44 bus, or you'll tell us. Well, okay. I don't see other questions for you, so we thank you very much, Mr. Rothkrug, for your presentation. And I do not see any members of the public wishing to testify on this item, Madam Secretary. So with that, we will close the hearing on calendar number 10 and 11 and move on to the next.
Borough of the Bronx, calendar numbers 12 and 13, 1400 Story Avenue, York Studios. CD9, calendar number 12, C230145ZSX. Calendar number 13, C230070MMX. Public hearing in the matter of applications for a special permit and a city map amendment concerning 1400 Story Avenue, York Studios.
Great, thank you very much. We have a sizable applicant team. I'm going to name them all by name, and they will have 10 minutes. We have a recusal from Commissioner Rempershad. Thank you. The applicant team consists of Frank St. Jacques, John Batista, Tyler Newborn, John Butts, Anthony Leva, Celeste Evans, Dan O'Brien, and John Pantanelli. And they're all joining us by Zoom. So, team, when you are set up and ready to go, you can get started, and we will start your 10-minute clock at that time.
Good morning, Chair Gorodnick and Commissioners. Thank you for having us this morning. As you noted, there's a sizable applicant team here this morning. In the interest of time, I'll just list the folks that are presenting, and then several members will be available for questions. But my name is Frank St. Jacques. I'm with Ackerman LLP. I'm joined by John Batista, the Executive Vice President of York Studios, and John Butts and Tyler F. Newborn of Abel, Banson, and Butts, the project landscape architect. The project architect and environmental consultant and other members of ownership are available for questions. We're going to try and focus our presentation on the project benefits and addressing some of the comments from the commission. And I'll start with John Batista of York Studios. Next slide, please. And John, take it away.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to present our request to City Planning. I'd like to start out by telling you that York Studios started as a small single stage in Maspeth, Queens. The owners and partners of York Studios were successful when opening their business. They came across a property in the Bronx, approximately 11 acres, which was basically abandoned and an eyesore for almost 20 years. They purchased the property and decided to expand York Studios. So we opened in 2019, and as soon as we opened, 3 months later, unfortunately, COVID struck the world. And one of the few things that we did right away on behalf of the owners, they wanted to know how to reach out and help the community, not just the local community, but the whole borough of the Bronx. So they started what is known as Rap for Bronx. And Rap for Bronx was a place where people could either come and pick up food, or it was delivered to various neighborhoods throughout the Bronx. And I am proud to say on behalf of them that they have given, since its inception, 2.5 million meals since March of 2020, and 3.5 million pounds of food were given out. Not only did they do that, but we continue to this day to develop giving out the food, but also for assisting in general services. They are still supporting it financially. They provided the capital to start with it. In addition to having a beautiful state-of-the-art campus here, one of the first things we did is to our neighbor right here, the Bronx Arena High School. We realized that communities need to continue the education. I developed a relationship with the principal there, and at that time, we turned around and purchased approximately 18 MacBooks, which they were in dire need for the students that attended. And then upon graduation, we gave out gift cards to all graduates. York Studios believes in giving back. We're very happy we're here. We're continuing to grow. We also support the Bruckner Commons Movie Night every year on an annual basis, National Night Out with the 4th Free Precinct. We work hand in hand on a weekly basis with them. The Tenants Association across the street from us, every September, we've given out backpacks for kids going back to school. And then in addition to that, we have the Soundview Park, which is adjacent to us, and we're developing a relationship for the last 2 years with Friends of Soundview Park, and we've contributed financially to them as well. So as we continue to grow, the bigger we get, the more we can do. And we look to work with the community on a one-on-one basis and to help beautify the Bronx as we move forward.
Thanks, John. Next slide, please. So I'll just move through some slides quickly. I know the commission is familiar with the project. It's a relatively, or it is a large project with a lot of details, but I'll just cover some briefly. The site and the surrounding context are shown here. We're along the Bronx River and immediately north of Soundview Park. Next slide, please. This slide shows the basic project information, but I'll add that the project is subject to the Climate Mobilization Act requirements regarding sustainability and emissions. And in particular, we wanted to highlight that the rooftop would be subject to requirements for solar and or green roof infrastructure. That's something that the applicant is working on evaluating now. To determine, how solar arrays can be installed on the roof. They will be, but to avoid reflection from some of the surrounding residential higher density buildings. I'll also note that the commission's comments, which we also received from the Bronx Borough President, we anticipate continuing discussion with the Bronx Borough President's office regarding visual interest of that long wall facing the Bronx River. The ownership will consider a mural there. We'll also note that the tree canopy will really mute the contrast between the concrete wall and the waterfront. But we're happy to continue that conversation regarding increasing visual interest, potentially with a mural. And next slide, please. We'll also note that the flood resiliency is a really critical aspect of this project. Not only is this site opening up the waterfront, as John noted, that's historically been closed off, but it involves the restoration and preservation of the wetlands subject to jurisdiction by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. There'll be extensive stormwater management that incorporates not only the landscape design, but pervious pavement, dry wells and catch basements, so that all stormwater is dealt with on site. I'm going to just ask, next slide, please, and I'll ask the landscape architects to just say a few words, and looks like we're close to time.
Good morning, everyone. I'm John Butts, Abel Bates & Butts, Landscape Architects. So the waterfront walkway really provides visitors access to the Bronx River. It extends along the west side of the building for over 1,000 linear feet, connecting Story Avenue on the north to Lafayette and Colgate on the south, and it will have a direct connection to Soundview Park. The pathway itself is 12 feet wide, fully ADA accessible. It meanders in a serpentine fashion between low berms and native plantings for the entire length. The path is lined with benches, approximately 20 of them, all facing the river and all with ADA accessible wheelchair companion spaces. There are several seating nodes along the length of the pathway. These seating nodes have both fixed and movable seating in both backed and backless. Planting includes native trees, 23 canopy trees, 39 flowering ornamental trees, and a variety of shrubs, ground covers, grasses, and perennials. And there is pedestrian scale lighting along the entire length of the path. It's the Flushing Meadow DPR pole, and it will provide 1 foot candle minimum along the path and an average of 2 foot candles.
So thanks, John. And I'll just use the remaining time to note that we are currently in discussion with the Department of Environmental Protection, with Parks, and with City Planning regarding the Lafayette Avenue portion that will be improved pursuant to the design framework that John was just discussing. But that portion of Lafayette Avenue will remain in city ownership. It will be improved by the applicant, but then maintained by Parks pursuant to a memorandum of understanding with the Department of Transportation. But that area to the south of the site will create connectivity to Soundview Park to the south. I'll leave it there. I'm sure that there's many questions from the commission, but we're happy to begin fielding those.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. St. Jacques. And let me start with a couple. Just as a point of clarification on that Lafayette Avenue versus Story Avenue posture. So as you noted, Lafayette Avenue will stay city-owned and will provide an upland connection and also connection to Soundview Park, if I understand you correctly. Is that right?
That is correct.
And Story Avenue on the other side would be, as part of this application, demapped and acquired by York Studios as part of the upland connection on the other end. Am I with you so far?
That is correct. And just to add some additional detail, the southern half of Story Avenue would be acquired and incorporated into the WPAA or the upland connection.
Okay, got it. Meaning that the other half would be left alone.
Correct, and most likely acquired by that northern property owner.
Okay, all right. So just if you don't mind here, there are 3 specific actions that you are asking the City Planning Commission to take, among others, but 3 I want to focus you on. And I just want, since we are in the public hearing portion of this process, just to articulate the need for each. On the special permit to allow the height to go above 30 feet, the proposed building here is a 60-foot building. There's an authorization which would waive the requirement that your upland connection be every 600 feet. Here would be 1,000. And there's another one that would reduce the width of the upland connection entry area. It's usually 50, you're asking 40. So if you could just spend a moment just making the case for each, I think that would be useful at this moment.
Great, we'd be happy to do that. And if I may ask to, if we could put up our slide presentation again. I think we have some slides that.
Great, I think we can do that. Just give
my explanation.
Give us a sec.
Great.
Yep.
So if we start around slide 7. And we don't, we'll take them in the order that the chair posed. So if we could move to slide 11, sorry, thank you. Oh, sorry, if we could, there we go. Great, so the proposed special permit, as the chair noted, is to increase the height of the proposed building from the maximum building wall height of 30 feet to 60 feet. That's illustrated on the left-hand side of the screen in the proposed rendering of shown here. York Studios, their existing building is compliant at 30 feet. What the 60 feet would allow is essentially more production space, more room for the film and television productions to build larger sets, to incorporate more lighting, more special effects. Essentially, more room and more height is critical to be competitive in this industry, and it allows essentially larger productions to occur within York Studios. I'm happy to have John add more detail there from York, but essentially the idea is that the York Studios has been successful in sound view, and this will increase their competitiveness in the film industry in New York City.
Yes, Frank, that's correct. We want to be able to attract the big, large-scale movies and large-scale TV sets and shows, as well as what we currently have. When you have 30 feet height, you can only build a one-story set. When you have a one-story set, your lighting has to come down off the roof. So it limits your sets approximately 20 feet in height at best. If we're granted this permission, we can then have two-story sets built within the walls of the studio, and we can attract more business. So it no longer will limit the types of production that we can have here. And that's crucial moving forward, because as well as movies, the television shows continue to grow and get bigger, and they're always looking to have more space. So it becomes very competitive for us.
Great, and then we can move to slide 8. Perfect, thank you. So on the left-hand side of the screen, this is an illustration of the waiver of the upland connection that's being requested, increasing it to about 1,000 square feet. As you can see, the way the site is configured along the waterfront, but in between Story Avenue, Colgate Avenue, and Bronx River Avenue, in order the alternative in terms of extending an upland street into a visual corridor from what's being proposed would be to extend Bronx River Avenue, as you can see on the northern edge of the site, the northern part of the screen, which would effectively, if that Bronx River Avenue were extended to the waterfront to create another visual corridor, it would essentially split the site in half. And I think, through discussion with the Department of City Planning, we determined that it wouldn't really serve the goal of, it would be a less effective visual corridor than what's being proposed. I'll note that the Bronx River Avenue was demapped, I think initially in the 60s, and then it finalized in the 90s in order to create this larger site. So really the concept here in requesting the waiver was to allow the larger footprint of the building, but also maintaining the visual corridors at Story Avenue and at Lafayette to serve the goals of the waterfront. So I'll pause there if you have follow-up questions on that, because I know this one's a somewhat more nuanced than some of the other authorizations were requested.
No, I don't. You can keep going, and then we'll hold them for the end. Okay,
great, thanks. And then actually, we can stay on this slide. I think this one has a more or a sort of similarly practical explanation. Story Avenue is mapped to a depth of, to a width of 80 feet. We're requesting a 40-foot upland connection rather than 50 feet, because would be the width of the demapped portion of Story Avenue that would be available for acquisition by the applicant were the demapping to be approved. So working within that 80-foot total from Story Avenue, and then the southern half, which would be available pursuant to the demapping and acquisition by the applicant.
Okay, thank you. While you're here on this slide, let's talk about the gates for a minute.
Sure.
You have gates. There are gates that you're proposing in a couple of different locations, and you're proposing them at a height that is higher than what is the norm here. Can you lay out for us where you're proposing them and why you believe you need them at the height of 8 feet, which is what is currently being proposed?
Sure. So the gates would be located at that upland connection at Story Avenue, and then at the edge of the site, at the edge of the Shore Public Walkway, as it abuts the unbuilt but to be improved portion of Lafayette Avenue. So gates will essentially surround the, or not surround, but there will be gates at the access points to the applicant-owned portions of the WPAA. With respect to the height, really throughout the pre-certification outreach that the applicant team did with the community board, the council member, we heard that the community board and the council member very much supported the idea of opening up this site along the waterfront for a new open space resource. But there's concerns about security and safety. I'll note that the community board for the past, I believe, 5 years, the Community Board 9's second most pressing issue in their district needs statement behind affordable housing is crime and public safety. The design of this fence is consistent with the existing fencing around York Studios. It's an 8-foot open steel picket fence. So we designed the fencing around the WPAA to match that, and in consideration of what we heard from the community about their needs for safety and security. We recognize that we do not want to create a perception of closing this space off. To the contrary, the goal of this waterfront public access area is to create an inviting and really beautiful natural resource, an extension essentially of Soundview Park. But we heard on a number of occasions, and I think the community board has articulated the specific height of the fence be a condition of their recommendation for approval, as did the council member, we understand, in a letter to the commission. So we recognize the concern, but also note that the site will be the WPAA will be open to the public, and the gates are intended to ensure that it's open in a safe and secure manner.
I'd also would like to add, it's all about safety and security. We welcome the public to go back there and see it during daytime hours, but our concern is at night. The back of the studio will have lighting, and if you have lighting, it will attract people as opposed to the rest of Soundview Park. I'm here every day and night, and Soundview Park has absolutely no lighting in it. So it's very rare that you see people go in there, and if they go in there, it's for personal reasons, which we don't know what's going on. But if we have a lower fence, this will attract more people, and you can climb over a fence easily. So it's really just to make sure that it stays clean and safe. We do have 24-hour security here, and we will be monitoring it to make sure that it stays that way.
And what hours will those gates be open?
So we are currently asking permission to have it from dawn to dusk.
So I'll note that we're waiting on the Parks Department to finalize their review of our restrictive declaration and agreement with respect to the WPAA. Soundview Park is the hours that we're proposing are consistent with Soundview Park, which is open from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. I just also wanted to add, with respect to Soundview Park, which is for the most part unfenced, it's for most of its, for the entirety of its 205 acres, it's surrounded by residential zoning and land uses up to the northern edge at Colgate Avenue and Lafayette, essentially where the site is and where the M11 zoning district begins. There's a really distinct character, land use character surrounding the site. It's predominantly industrial. There's very little street activity, and the streets themselves are not well lit at night. So and also note that the Community Board 9, their district needs statement for the past few years has requested that parks enhance park safety and Soundview Park through more security staff, either police or parks enforcement. And then I'll finally note, just with respect to some other points of comparison, Hunts Point Riverside Park, which is almost immediately to the southwest of the site across the river, is similarly fenced with an approximately 8-foot fence. It's actually painted blue to reflect the industrial character surrounding that park. Hunts Point Landing and Barretto Point Park, also across the river, but within similar industrial surroundings. Both are fenced. So we believe that there is, these are city parks, not WPAAs, but there's some precedent for similarly situated parks within predominantly industrial areas that we feel that the site is comparable to.
Thank you very much. Let me go to Commissioner Maureen.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for your presentation. I had a couple of concerns which I expressed on Monday, which I'm sure was shared with you, and I'm happy to hear that, there have been 2.5 million meals distributed to the community, representing 3 million pounds of food, and admirable gesture, appreciated, understood. But, I'm a little bit more concerned about the school next door and what we're doing to work with those children to educate them in the film industry, and maybe there is some part of your process that could include that. It would be interesting to note that, the school's been around for a while, you guys have been around for a while, and phase one also didn't have any type of participation with the school. So I would encourage you to work with the school. I know you've given out iPads. I've written down notes of what you've done. So you have contributed. I understand that. But this is an ongoing contribution where children can learn and become part of the film industry. And I think that it would behoove us, since we have this facility right next door, to try and create some side synergies with that school, excuse me. You've addressed the concerns about the rooftop of solar and the blank wall. I would encourage you to look at matrix solar panels, which are vertical panels. I see you have a lot of glass on the south-facing direction, where you can actually take advantage of some of those rays to collect the energy from the sun. The trailers, we heard from the community board that there are parking of trailers outside the facility, and I wonder what arrangements have you made to park existing trailers on the campus proper versus having them on the street like on Bronx River. Haddad always lines up Bronx River, and it becomes real congested. And lastly, I hear the need for the 8-foot gates, and I do appreciate the concern of security. The whole world's concerned with security and safety. I think the argument to me would have been more palatable if you're saying that you're trying to match the existing design of the existing 8-foot fence that you have around Michelangelo, and you're also mimicking some of the other areas in the Bronx that have 8-foot fences. Well, the whole world is concerned about security. We're not barbaric. We're not going to go in there and tear down your studio. I live right across that river, and I understand the concerns that you're expressing. But I think that as we try to grow ourselves in society and to help to try and garner these measures of support that you're looking for, I think we need to be a little more sensitive to the community as well. So those are just my comments. I don't know if you have any responses to the interaction with the school, but I would urge you to consider that.
Sure, I'll start, and then I'll, John, if you mind following up. So I'll start with parking. That's something that was discussed in depth at several meetings with the community board, but then at the land use committee hearing as well as the full board hearing. I'll let John elaborate on that. I think that where issues have arisen in the past, York has been responsive and has agreed to continue to be responsive to concerns about parking. One thing that the expansion of into phase 2 will do is provide additional space on site, for trailer parking. And potentially resolve those issues permanently. With respect to the Bronx Arena High School, the York studios, their involvement with and collaboration with Bronx Arena thus far has been financial. There's and we'll let John elaborate. There is some limited potential just based on how the studio operates, essentially with production companies coming in. But I will say that York Studios is currently working on opening up a school for film and television production. It's in Queens, and they've also worked with other educational programs. We're certainly open, or York Studios is certainly open to incorporating Bronx Arena High School into those existing relationships. And with that, I'll turn it over to John because he's more familiar with the details of that work.
Yeah. So as far as Bronx Arena High School is concerned, that was the first door I knocked on once we started breaking ground here and developed a relationship with Ann Zinke, who is the program director. And basically my message to her was, Let me know if there's anything you'd like to discuss, how we can work together. And she basically came back over the last couple of years, and it was really just a financial need. I understand what you're saying, and if that's something that they would, like to discuss, we're open to that. So we just want to be a good neighbor to the tenants across the street, as well as the school right next door. So we always believe in open dialogue.
I hear you saying that, you're waiting for the school to say. How about you suggesting to the school?
That's something we can do.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Marin. Let me go to Vice Chair Knuckles, followed by Commissioners Kermani and Benjamin.
Thank you, Chair. I'd simply want to underscore the comments of Commissioner Marin on all of the topics, but particularly the school. York is about to make a significant investment here. It's presumably to have a long-term presence there. The school is certainly going to be there. So I agree that I think it's incumbent upon York to initiate some dialogue with the school around a relationship that might yield internships and the educational enhancement of these students with regard to this industry, which is a growth industry that York has been a part of over the last couple of decades. So I'm glad you're receptive to it, but I think you should be more initiative in terms of this dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Commissioner Kermani.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I, too, would like to just double down my support for the comments of Commissioner Marin and now Vice Chair Knuckles. I think they've both said it really well, so I will not add to it in terms of the relationship with the school. But I strongly, strongly, strongly support what they have both said. My comment or question is actually on the access to the Bronx River, and wondering, which I didn't hear, but wondering if there has been a conversation with the Bronx River Alliance. So I heard about the relationship with the civic organizations around Soundview, but has there been dialogue with the Bronx River Alliance, who have been stewards of the Bronx River and really recreated its usability over the last 20 years, 18 years? And then my second question is I appreciate hearing that the studio will consider a mural, and I hope that can move from consideration to that the studio will kind of partner or work with community organizations to actually create a mural. So I'm wondering under what conditions the studio wouldn't consider a mural.
So we've been open to suggestions from the beginning when it was first brought up with the community board and then the borough president's office about some type of mural on the back of that. And we said, as we move forward, we're happy to continue those conversations, but and that's working with maybe local artists or people that are creative and want to come up with ideas. So we've been completely on board with that, but we haven't gotten down to any kind of specifics because we're still just early in this process. It's been, I think, 2.5 years now, almost 3 years, just trying to get the permission to move forward, to build. So, but that was brought up in the last several months, and we said we're open to it. We're happy to look at it and see what people come up with, what kind of ideas.
And we'll note the Bronx Borough President staff has indicated that they're going to continue to follow up with the applicant team, specifically with respect to the mural. So, we anticipate that this conversation will, be ongoing, and that the Bronx Borough President will continue to put pressure on the applicant team to make this happen. If I could just respond to your question with respect to the Bronx River Alliance. We haven't had a conversation with that organization yet. We fully believe that this project is in line with the Bronx River Alliance's goals, and anticipate that this will be a project that they would want to feature on their website, showing a before and after, like similar areas that have been restored along the riverfront. We're happy to initiate conversation with the Bronx River Alliance. With respect to access to the waterfront, there's not direct access contemplated. For example, launching kayaks or anything. That's something that we could consider in the future, but it's not part of the proposed WPA plan or within the permit request to the New York State DEC for the tidal wetland adjacent area.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kermani. We'll go now to Commissioner Benjamin, to be followed by Commissioner Crowell on Zoom.
Actually concerned about two areas, and also being associated with the comments of Commissioner Marin and Commissioner Kermani and Commissioner Knuckles. But I was concerned about the renderings you have of the fence. And my question is, in this lovely outdoor area, why the fence can't be more of a living fence that would allow people to feel that they're in a more outdoor environment? Is that something that is possible?
I will defer to the landscape architect. I'm actually not familiar with the concept of the living fence. If I could just ask you to maybe give us a little bit more detail, so I don't.
Well, there's several ways that people have done living fences. Some of them are basically used. Greenery is used to cover the fence to make it less fence-like and more outdoor-like. Sometimes, if you go to some place like the Museum of Modern Art, you will see a fence that is completely made of green or other colored growing items that provide a separation, and people cannot pierce it.
Understood. So I do know that, and one of my colleagues just reminded me that there are, certain transparency requirements related to fencing. I am not exactly sure off the cuff how those relate to the incorporation of plant matter or but that's something we can look into. Unless John Butts, you can provide some additional detail here. I'd want to look at that a little bit more closely and see if that is something that we could consider, or if there's a particular reason why that wasn't considered. But John, is there anything that you can add?
Well, we've certainly done many green fences. I think one of the issues here is we have very wide gates, and obviously nothing could be grown on the gates because they need to function. And we're trying to keep them as open as possible so circulation flows easily between. The point about transparency is definitely an issue, very difficult to control the plant material once it begins. And these would be primarily vines. So they are difficult to control once they start growing. So we can certainly look into it, but there probably are some reasons that we could not be successful with this.
Okay, particularly in the back of the building. I mean, I know you've talked about a mural, but I'm not sure how well the mural might interact with the kind of sylvan passive nature of the space that you've designed and are contemplating for this area, particularly behind the 60-foot building.
Right. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, please.
No, you go.
I think, ensuring that, any visual interest that's added to, to this rear wall or the Bronx River facing wall doesn't conflict with the design of the WPAA and the sort of, space that's created for essentially passive recreation is something that we've been discussing internally. So that will obviously be part of any conversation regarding a mural. I will note, and this is something that I don't believe that we described in the presentation, probably in the presentation materials. Those concrete walls are broken up with. There is some visual interest incorporated into the design itself. It's subtle, but there's a vertical. Excuse me one second. I just moved my notes. There are the panels themselves are broken up with vertical and horizontal lines. So it's not just a flat concrete panel, but there is some articulation created, and there was some design consideration built into that wall itself. Is it
possible we could get a rendering of what that would look like? Because, from my perspective, looking at a 60-foot concrete wall unbroken by windows or anything else would tend to be somewhat oppressive over the adjoining.
We can highlight that. Understood, and we can highlight that in a written submission. I think the existing York Studios building incorporates some of those same features, and so we can show you sort of not only what the proposed would look like, but how that's incorporated into the existing building.
Okay, and I'd appreciate it if it wasn't written, if it was graphic.
Sure, we can work on that.
Okay, and the second issue that I have, which the community board expressed and you expressed concerned about, was the safety features. Because there is a building between people who will be using this space and the street and others who may be walking, wandering, what safety features are you incorporating to help those who use the park? Will there be security cameras, phones, emergency call boxes? How will the public be protected and able to access these safety features?
So that's a good question. The site, there will be 24-hour cameras and on-site security. John, if you want to just provide a little bit more detail there as to what you currently do at York Studios and how that would be operate in the proposed development.
Sure. So all along the walkway there, we will have cameras located throughout the entire back of the facility. Cameras that will be turned on, and we have security people at the entrance of Bronx River Avenue, where the first uplink is, and we will have a separate security person over on Colgate and Lafayette. And then the security cameras, as well as lighting, is all along the waterfront, along with benches. And that's why, as I had stated previously, during the night is why we were looking for the height on the fences, and because that's going to be lit and there's going to be benches, and it could potentially attract people that would want to go and hang out at night for whatever reason. So we are very sensitive to making sure that is kept clean, and that's going to fall on us to make sure during the day everything's taken care of. But we will have actually people there, cameras there, and lights.
And will there be any use of call boxes or other ways that people who are feeling unsafe can contact your security or the police or others?
So those are not incorporated into the site plan. As John noted, York has a relationship with the local precinct, and should the need arise, I know that at Soundview Park and some of the surrounding parks in the area, there has been the installation of call boxes. That's something that's not contemplated now. It's not shown in our plan, but we can have that conversation should the need arise. I think our thinking is that with the on-site security that's in place and the proposed hours of operation and fencing, we would be able to provide adequate, or not adequate, but appropriate security, and then are willing to have that ongoing discussion with the local precinct, to ensure that it remains safe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Let me go to Commissioner Crowell.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to echo some of the sentiments about the school that were previously mentioned by my colleagues. Just wanted to add an additional point. When we originally had a prep session on this matter, I did some research about the school. It's got a very unique mission, an older student body who's going back to high school to finish their degrees, but also I think there are some very strategic and unique opportunities to partner with them, given that they have an older workforce and could present really great opportunities for the studio. Also, I would encourage the studio to look beyond that, given the nature of that workforce, to community colleges or even some of the four-year colleges at ways to create pipelines into the industry. We view this as an important opportunity, and other studios are similarly looking at those kinds of relationships. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Crowell. And John, if you want to speak to some of the work you do in that regard, and so before I'll just say that, I'll work with the applicant team on making reaching out to the high school. And sorry, I'll turn it over to you, John, if you want to just elaborate on some of the work that York Studios does with preparing folks into entering the film and television industry.
So we're always willing to try and assist with anyone looking to come into the industry, whether it's through the trades in construction or electric, grip and electric, lighting. We'll always point them in the proper direction and try to connect the people. As we move forward, I have a relationship with the Ghetto Film School, which is located in the Bronx, and the people that started that. There has also been outreach with the local Cinema High School. And so, unfortunately, because of COVID, I had been willing to give tours of our facility. But once COVID came in, and even to this day, right now, the Screen Actors Guild have very strict rules. And because of COVID, anyone who comes into this facility still, as of today, has to be tested. So we've been limited on sharing what we actually have here. But hopefully, I believe sometime this month or next month, the Screen Actors Guild and the COVID procedures, what they've had in their contracts, are going to change. And if that happens, I fully plan on, again, opening it up to see how we can bring people in, show what we have here, work with the Bronx Arena School, as everyone here on the panel has suggested. And this is all noted, and we'll look forward to a better working relationship in that area.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioner Crowell. Let me go to Commissioner Goodrich.
Of many of my by the relationship with the I think my question is, and I want to bounce it off of Commissioner Kermani's point. What I was wondering is, when you're doing all of this work, does it impact the waterway in any way at all? Might it possibly lead to any pollution of the waterway? And if so, have you thought about how you can minimize that? I was looking at the map and wondering, with all of this extra, work being done. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Goodrich. It's a good question, and so I'll note the very short answer is no. The longer answer is that we worked with AKRF as our environmental consultant to prepare an environmental assessment statement to ensure that there would be no adverse impacts for natural resources, the main natural resource here being the Bronx River. We're also working with a arborist and geohydrologist with respect to obtaining permits with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation to ensure that the area along the length of the Bronx River, which is considered a tidal wetlands adjacent area, is restored and preserved, and there's no either runoff or erosion of the riverbank, essentially no adverse effects in that capacity. And we're also working with the landscape architects who are on the call today and a civil engineer with respect to installing infrastructure within the site, essentially a pretty extensive stormwater management system to ensure that any runoff or stormwater is treated on site and doesn't flow into the Bronx River. I can, if you'd like, us to provide more specific detail, we're happy to. But the comprehensive planning around this site was intended to and improve this formerly industrial piece of property and restore it back to its natural beauty along the Bronx River. So use of native plants and restoration of the natural shoreline, not disturbing any existing plantings, and really cleaning it up and ensuring that nothing new goes into the water. Has really been a critical piece of the planning.
Thank you. We have environmental reports too, but it's always helpful to hear your perspective.
Sure.
My other question, I think you actually kind of answered it, so that's it for me.
Thank you, Commissioner Goodrich. Okay. With that, thank you very much for your presentation. We do not have other people looking to testify today, so we will close the hearing on this item, the York Studios proposal, calendars 12 and 13 at 1400 Story Avenue. So thank you again very much, and we will move on to the next item on to today's agenda. Oh, and yes, we'll bring Commissioner Rampersad back in the room. Great. Thank you.
Borough, Brooklyn, calendar numbers 14 and 15, 1656 West 10th Street rezoning. CD 11, calendar number 14, C220285ZMK. Calendar number 15, N220286ZRK. Public hearing in the matter of applications for a zoning map and zoning text amendments concerning 1656 West 10th Street rezoning.
Great. Thank you very much. We have Eric Palatnik by Zoom on behalf of the applicant. Mr. Palatnik, when you are ready, we'll look forward to hearing from you. For 3 minutes.
Hello, my name is Eric Palatnik. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
That's great. Thank you very much, Chair and members of the Commission. I'd like to thank you for making the time to hear me today. My name is Eric Palatnik, and I'm representing 1656 West 10th Street in an application to rezone the premises to an R6A zoning district. Next slide, please. The property is in the confines of Community Board 11, where it received a strong recommendation of support. It has also received a strong recommendation of support from the Borough President. As you can see here on the right side of your slide, it's proposed to rezone the premises from its existing R401 zoning designation, which is, I would say, not appropriate for the site, to an R6A that would create a 24,000 square foot residential building, 6 stories tall, 21,000 square feet of residential floor area, about a total of 8,000 square feet of community facility floor area at the first floor in the subcellar, which includes an existing adult daycare, which will stay in place, and 27 apartments upstairs, 7 of which will be affordable at MIH option level 1. Next slide, please. The rezoning is depicted right here. You can see on the right side of your screen, the R6A in the middle, right off of a very wide intersection of Kings Highway. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. This slide gives you a good understanding of what I'm asking you to support today and why the community board supported it so well. The application requests a rezoning that will bring a contextual building into development at the premises. As you can see, many buildings on this block front are similar in size to that which is proposed here. Next slide, please. The next slide just shows you the building in its entirety. If you can skip ahead to slide 8, please. That's 2 slides. This slide tells the story in even further detail. The park that you mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, Seth Lowe Playground, is in the background at the right, by the way. Look that up. Former mayor of Brooklyn in 1880. As you can see here, there are numerous buildings of similar size all around us, despite the R41 zoning. I would suggest that the R41 zoning is inappropriately placed here, and the R6A is more suitable. If you could skip ahead a few slides, please, to slide 11. Slide 11 depicts for you information from the Racial Equity Report, which depicts for you really a very strong non-white population. In fact, 63.7% of the population is non-white, and an equally strong portion of the population is foreign-born, 55.9%. The right-hand side shows you that it's in desperate need of affordable housing. Next slide, please. And actually, if you could skip ahead 2 slides to slide 13. Slide 13 shows you here at the top the woefully inadequate numbers of affordable housing that have been built in this district, which is only 22. We will be adding 7 to that. The next slide, please. And the next slide shows you. Oh, there you go.
Thank you, Mr. Palatnik. Let's just, we'll ask you on this just to help you finish it up. Tell us about the permanently affordable units that the project is anticipated to create.
Sure. It's a rather small development. So only 27 apartments in total are being created, but of those 27, 7 will be at the MIH level of option 1. 4 of those units will be at 40% AMI. You could see in the middle, and there'll be 1 unit at 80% AMI, and there'll be 2 units at 60% AMI. So that is the presentation. I could also show you some more information about the building itself if you'd like to see it. It's been designed very well to fit in the neighborhood. And I'd be happy.
Okay, let's do it. Let us take a look at it.
All right, if I could slide ahead, if you can go right to slide 19, please. Slide 19 shows the work we've done with the community board. We spent the entirety of the pre-certification process meeting with them. The result is a building on the left side shows you to the front of the building, which is protecting on the right side the adjacent lot line windows. And you could see that we have a generous setback at the front that allows us to line up with the buildings next door to us. The right side of your screen shows you the rear of the building. Similarly, there are lot line windows on the left side of the building that's to our right when you're looking at it from the front, and left when you're looking at it from the rear. And those lot line windows are being protected right there as well through the provision of a larger than required rear yard. So that was all I wanted to show you, was the tasteful design of the building, how it's been designed to accommodate the adjacent lot line windows. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Commissioner Maureen?
Eric, the only question that I have is you have, you keep mentioning R41, and on your presentation you have existing R5B.
I do apologize. Let me double check that for you right now. It is R5B. I misspoke. I was reading it off of the tax map. I apologize. It's existing right now as R5B.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Maureen. All right, Mr. Palatnik, thank you very much. We do have one person signed up to testify on this application. And I'd like to welcome Angela Liu to say a few words. Ms. Liu is on Zoom, and you'll have 3 minutes whenever you are settled and ready.
Hi, can you all hear me now?
We can hear you.
Oh, okay, great. Okay. Thank you so much for letting me speak. There are 4 houses located in back of 1656 West 10th Street, and we are the homeowners of one of those 4 houses. We, along with the homeowners of the other 3 houses, are strongly opposed to this proposed zoning change. Furthermore, we have collected signed petitions from residents in the immediate area along West 10th Street and West 11th Street, close to 200 signatures opposing this project. And the thing is, when we got the signature from local residents, basically 100% or 99% of the folks who signed the petition were just hearing about the proposal for the first time. So in other words, it seems like that the city agency have not adequately notified those in the community about this proposal. We oppose to this project for the following reasons. West 10th Street, if you walk along it, along this block, it's already very densely populated and densely built up. For example, 130 Avenue P has 87 units. 1684 West 10th Street has 84 units. There are so many 6-story buildings on that block. If you add up all the units, there are at least 341 units on that block alone. It's already very dark, dirty, and more lit on the street, more car congestion, more double parking, etc. It's just a very congested block already. So why do we need another 6-story building in that block? Yes, New York City needs affordable housing, but not on that block. The property right now is a 2-story building. It literally provides fresh air and light to that block, and also to both buildings on either side of the proposal. And many of the people who signed this petition on West 10th Street are worried that when this property goes up, it's going to block off their light and air when they look out the windows facing the property. So also, homeowners along West 11th Street are also concerned of the damage that we will sustain from this construction. All our houses along West 11th Street are built in 1920s, so not very new. And we are just worried about the impact of the digging into the ground to build 2 subcellars to create parking for the subject building. We reviewed the plan, and it looks like the owner intend to build right up against our property line. So what happens if, it causes our foundation to collapse, it causes crack to our houses? What happens then? Who do we, what happens? That's what we are worried about also. And as a side note, just want to know if your office will look into whether or not the proposed 2-level subcellar will hit the water table. This is I've heard this issue. I've heard this is an issue for a nearby project.
Thank you, Ms. Liu, very much for your.
Am I out?
Thank you. Yeah, you're out of time. Thank you. Why don't you finish up that last thought, and then we'll see if there are any questions for you. Okay. Commissioner Goodrich.
Hi. Can you hear me? Lou, are you there?
Ms. Liu, did we lose you?
Hello, sorry. I don't know why.
There you are. Okay, Commissioner Goodrich has a question for you.
I just have a question. So, you know the area better than I do. I'm looking at it on the map, and it looks like you said something about the height. It looks like the building right next to it is also 6 stories. It would be the same height as the proposed.
Right. So what you're saying is, if you look at the block, it's already very dark. So you're saying, okay, you already have a lot of six-story building, we'll just put another one in there, but it will make it even darker. So I just feel like it's already, it reached a point of already being too congested, too densely built. And it seems like you are saying maybe, yeah, there's no parking. We routinely hear car honking day and night, like not just me, but my neighbors along West 11th Street. It can block vehicles if we decide to do a construction there. What else, Sam?
Yeah, I was just trying to understand.
Right on time is many of my neighbors want to send in a letter of petition. What is the deadline to submit that letter? Because on your website, it says by 11:59 p.m. before the day of vote. I don't know when the day of vote is.
Yeah, we will have some instructions for you here, but you can mail those comments to the City Planning Commission, our calendar information office at 120 Broadway, 31st floor, New York, 10271. And I'm going to ask you, Madam Secretary, what is the deadline for that?
We will confirm that. It will be posted in one of our CPC calendars on the website.
Okay, we will put the dates by which you need to submit that into our official documents here, just so you have it. But for the moment, you should send those comments if you have them as a follow-up to the address that I just mentioned. Commissioner Goodrich, back to you.
I was just better trying to understand your point. See if I'm missing something here. Just and what, as I was saying before, it does, like when I'm looking at this map, it doesn't look like, so we often have sometimes people and their issue is the character. It's a 10-story building and everything else is a 3-story building, so it would block something or it just is not in character with the rest of the neighborhood. But when I'm looking at it, it doesn't really look, it wouldn't really bring anything all that different. So I guess I'm just trying to better understand your point. And also the community board, I think they voted unanimously for it, correct me if I'm wrong. So I guess I was, and, now we have another person, who's pointing out some other viewpoints. So I just want to make sure I understand it correctly.
Okay, so the windows, the issue is light and air. Right now, that block is already very dark because of all these 6-story buildings. So you're saying, okay, we're just going to add another one in. It's going to be even darker, dirtier, more double parking, more congestion, more litter on the streets. Because if you look at the character of West 10th Street, it's totally different from West 11th Street. West 11th Street is quiet. You don't hear, the double parking and honking doesn't come from West 11th Street. It comes from West 10th Street because it's already so congested, so densely built. So we do need affordable housing in the city as a whole, but that block is already pretty built up.
Okay. All right. I better understand
Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Benjamin?
Actually, I had a question for the applicant about this. As I read the drawings, I see what appears to be a 30-foot rear yard with some kind of open space for, I assume, for residents. And I wanted to just make sure that that is, in fact, what is happening. And two, if it is, to point out that it appears from the photographs that right now the building that's there goes all the way to the rear property line because it's not a residential building, so that in fact the new building would be further away from the rear yards of residents than the current building. So I wanted to check with the applicant whether that in fact is correct.
Good. Before we do that, let me see if there's any other questions for Ms. Liu. Seeing none, okay, let's see if we can pull Mr. Palatnik back if he is still with us. Mr. Palatnik, hope you heard the question from Commissioner Benjamin about the 30-foot rear yard and whether this development would sit further away than the existing building.
Hi, Eric Palatnik. Yes, thank you, Commissioner and Chair, for for noticing that. And I would like to point that out to Ms. Liu as well, that the existing condition is a lot line to lot line, nearly 30-foot tall condition that goes right up against Ms. Liu's home. As I pointed out in the earlier slide to you, and I mentioned it in passing, our rear yard has been specifically designed at a greater than permitted 30 feet. It's actually 35 feet in depth, and it's been stepped back to accommodate the windows on the side, as I was showing you earlier. So Ms. Liu is benefiting to some extent, although the proposed building will be at a greater height than is proposed by about 25 feet or so. It will be set back 35 feet further than the existing 20 to 30 foot brick wall that is currently up against her rear lot line. So I don't know if that makes a difference in her consideration, but that is a factually correct statement.
Thank you, Mr. Palatnik.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Benjamin. Okay. With that, I see no other members of the public wishing to testify on this item. So we will close the hearing on calendar number 14 and 15 and open the hearing on 16 and 17. Madam Secretary, if you would do the honors.
Borough Brooklyn, calendar numbers 16 and 17, 7120 New Utrecht Avenue rezoning, CD 11. Calendar number 16, C230001ZMK. Calendar number 17, N230002ZRK. Public hearing and the matter of applications for a zoning map and zoning text amendments concerning 7120 New Utrecht Avenue rezoning.
Great, thank you very much. And on behalf of the applicant, we have Eli Gerwitz, and Haley Paget, Haley Paget, on Zoom. Mr. Gerwitz is with us here in the room. And whenever you are settled and ready, we got you for 3 minutes, and welcome.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Chair Garodnik. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Eli Gewirtz. I'm from Davidoff, Hutcher, and Citron, representing the applicant here, 7120 New Utrecht LLC, in their rezoning application at 7120 New Utrecht Avenue in the Bensonhurst neighborhood of Brooklyn, Community District 11. The actions being requested here are a zoning map amendment from R5 to C44L and the elimination of the C22 commercial overlay that currently is mapped 100 feet deep from New Utrecht Avenue between 71st and 72nd Streets, and a zoning text amendment to map an MIH areas, options 1 and 2 over the proposed project area. The land use actions would facilitate development of a 9-story mixed-use building containing approximately 85,000 square feet, 100 total dwelling units, 30 of which would be permanently affordable pursuant to MIH option 2, and 11,650 square feet of ground floor retail to maintain the continuity of the retail continuity along New Utrecht Avenue. We're also in Councilmember Justin Brannon's district. Here's our, as you see, our development site is highlighted here in red. It comprises 18,500 approximately square feet. We're also rezoning a site that is non-applicant owned to the immediate north. We're proposing to rezone that lot 29, which is a 2-story building, which is directly in front of the D-Train 71st Street entrance. That is a non-applicant owned site. Here, as you see our site overview from the aerial, you see how the D-Train within New Utrecht Avenue elevated rail running right along our site. New Utrecht Avenue is 80 feet wide, and to the immediate east, you have a 75-foot utility building by Verizon, which is also along 16th Avenue, which is also 80 feet wide. Here you see our zoning change map from R5 C22 to C44L. C44L districts are particularly tailored to accommodate sites that are up against elevated rail lines, given their setback provisions, their mandatory 5-foot sidewalk widening. Here you see our land use map with some institutional uses to the west. I'll also note that there's a Joseph Petrosino playground immediately to our northeast. Here you see the project site. So the site used to be a Capital One bank that vacated the premises in approximately 2018. It's been vacant for the past 5 years until this past year. The site is actually being leased to a school on an interim basis. We'll run through the project site. Here you see the non-applicant owned building with the entrance to the subway, and just pointing out how we designed the building specifically with the character of the neighborhood in context. We're designing the setback at 15 feet at the minimum base height.
All right, that's your time, but let me pose the first question, and it really relates to this, in any event, the interplay between the train and the C44L as proposed. Can you just say a little bit more about that?
Yes, 100%. So the C44L district allows flexibility with the setback. It actually allows one of the lowest minimum base heights from all of comparable districts. It allows a setback at 25 feet, which we are taking advantage of here. As you see, we are proposing to set the building back at that minimum base height. So the elevated rail is approximately aligned with the second floor of the building. So we're not proposing any dwelling units along that second floor. At the second floor, we'll have the laundry space, some rec spaces, but we're very cognizant of the fact that the elevated rail lines up right there. And that is why, in order to maximize the FAR, we needed to go to 9 stories here, because we're setting back at the lowest point. The C44L district allows a maximum base height at 65 feet. If we did that, theoretically, we could lower the building, but we wanted to produce a building with quality dwelling units that were pushed back from the elevated rail. Additionally, we're also cognizant of the R5 district immediately behind us, so we're setting back at 55 feet there. We have an 8-foot side yard along the entire western lot line along 72nd Street, and the 5-foot sidewalk widening that is required by the C44L district along the Utrecht.
Thank you. And the total number of units, forgive me for not noting it if you said it in your presentation here, it's 100 total units?
Yes.
Of which 30 are income restricted?
Correct.
And this community district over the past 10 years has produced how many income restricted units?
So they've produced, since 2014, 107 new income restricted units. But I'll note all of those units have been in one income bracket, the 51 to 80% AMI bracket. There have been no units built since 2014 that cater to moderate to middle income housing. And we think our MIH option 2 that we're pursuing here really meets that need, which has not been addressed in the past 9 or so years.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Knuckles?
Thank you. With regard to the affordable units, I'll call them, what kind of outreach, and I know some of this is presumably governed by the city, but what kinds of marketing outreach are you going to utilize in order to make sure that, you know, all of the impacted neighborhoods here, which go beyond the immediate neighborhood, would have the opportunity to apply for these relatively few units?
Yes, so we're actually just reached an agreement that we'll be working with the New York City Housing Partnership. They're going to be our administering agent for the site. They are already a pre-qualified administering agent that's been pre-qualified by HPD, and we feel fully confident working with them that they are going to be marketing these units to the Bensonhurst and the surrounding area. They'll be working closely with the community board to market these units. So we're going to be working closely with them to make sure that this is well known within the community.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Gold, followed by Commissioner Murray.
Hi. Speak a little bit, if you can. Obviously, the community board came out strong against this. What were their objections? I'm going to assume from here it's height, but
yes. So yeah, the community thought it was out of scale for the neighborhood. We acknowledge that to our immediate west, there are not 9-story buildings. We do note that there is the 75-foot utility building across the street. This is along a wide avenue with a subway station right there. This is where we feel added density is appropriate. It really, we feel, checks all of the boxes from a land use rationale. We tried our best to accommodate the community in other ways. For example, our original proposal proposed the minimum amount of parking that was required by zoning, which was 35 spaces. We increased that to 52 spaces in the cellar because the community board said that a lot of people drive in this neighborhood. They did want to see more parking, so we accommodated that. We also heard comments that this area under the L is historically very dark, so we added lighting fixtures along all of the vertical bays, along the facade, as I can show you from the screen here. As you see our lighting fixtures, we also we added as many street trees as we could because we heard concerns about flooding concerns. So we added as many street trees as we could, which could help absorb any stormwater runoff. We also, they were related to the darkness of the area under the L. We also added security cameras along both the 72nd Street frontage and the New Utrecht Avenue frontage. So we really tried to do everything we could to accommodate what we heard from the community, except for reduce the building height. We want to maintain quality dwelling units that are pulled back from the elevated rail. And in order to maximize the FAR, we needed to go up to 9 stories.
And talk for a second about the height. So the zoning would give you ability to go to 110 feet, is it? And you're going to 90? Is that?
We're going to 95 feet, correct. Yes. Under the C44L with the MIH, we can go up to 115 officially with a qualifying ground floor.
And if we look, I tried to look on Google Maps. I'm semi-familiar with the area, but if we think about the general zone, aside from the utility that's 75 feet, what, as we look around, how far do we have to get to find something else that's 95 feet tall?
It's a good question. I haven't been so far. Let me
ask it a different way, because I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just thinking about this more broadly. When we think about the 75-foot utility, presumably that, that's an outlier. It stands out a bit because it seems like, between the zoning and the 1- and 2-family homes, presumably as one thinks about the neighborhood, there aren't, I guess it's a question of that really stands out as we continue through. There aren't a lot of super tall buildings in the neighborhood, are there?
There are not a lot, but we do feel, given that we are right along the Utrecht Avenue on a corner lot, really, and also as the aerial shows here, we're also very much close to intersecting 16th Avenue, which is another 80-foot wide street. We do think, you see there's a pretty sizable school to the west. That's a 4-story school, which is a pretty bulky building there. So we do think, even though there are not a ton of taller buildings within this immediate area, we do think this is an appropriate site that could accommodate the 9 stories.
Sure. It'd be interesting, just maybe as a point to follow up, to see, would this be, at this height, the tallest building, for miles in the area, or, be worth maybe, as a point to follow up, taking a look and seeing where the next closest, building at this height is.
For sure.
It'd be interesting for character. Thanks.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gold. Commissioner Marin.
You mentioned that Housing Partnership will be the mandatory inclusionary housing compliance monitor for the units. Are the units also receiving HPD subsidy?
I do not believe so.
Would they still need to go through the city's lottery system?
I believe yes, under the MIH, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Chair Knuckles, back to you.
Thank you. Could you go back to the slide on the unit breakdown?
Yes.
Yeah, my question was, and I couldn't grasp it just with a quick look, what would be the proposed breakdown amongst the affordable units in terms of unit distribution?
In terms of which level of AMI they would be at?
No, unit size.
So we have that, here in the 4th bullet, the MIH unit breakdown. So we're proposing 5 studios, 14 1-bedroom, 8 2-bedroom, and 3 3-bedroom units. That equals the 30 MIH units that are being proposed.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Commissioner Goodrich.
Question is about for You had mentioned about moderate income. I don't necessarily have a little bit of a problem, but not a problem with like moderate income and AM. But for this particular area, it looks like in the annual median household income is $5,000, and most of the low income units, most of them are in that 51 to 80, and the 50, I think it starts at around 46, which is fine, but then the rest of the units are 81%, which would be like $80,000 and up. So I guess what my question is for this particular project, and for it to align with racial equity, is why not just have most of the units in the 51 to 80%, so that it matches, the actual area median household income?
So that's something we could look into further. What I could say to that, first of all, we have not received any pushback on this process regarding the affordability. The community board did not say anything that they had any issues with the affordability. The borough president had no issues with the affordability being proposed. So as the commission is well aware, sometimes the AMI levels that are used are taken from a wider area than what is actually reflected in the community. So, but the way the AMI levels that we are asked to look at now are based on, the wider area range. So we do think that this could be a need for people who, there are no income restricted units right now for people who may, even if they're not living in the community per se right now, who may want to live in this community, people who can afford that option to MIH. We're looking for teachers, firefighters, people in the moderate to middle class that we think could significantly benefit from this project.
That's what I mean, because like teachers, $120,000, most of them in the 50s. I understand that they on the height and so forth, but it's an important larger one into what we.
Yeah, we take your point. Thank you so much for your comment. We can look into that and whether we think we can make the project work under MIH option 1 as well.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Buzzard?
I don't have a question, just so much more than a comment, that I appreciate kind of the pickle you're in and want to echo the point around how challenging it is to find sites in neighborhoods and community districts that haven't contributed much to our housing crisis, that how difficult it is to find sites where we can try to bring more density to add more units. And it's a very complex thing, but it does seem like this context and being so close to the subway and on these wider avenues, that it makes sense, as challenging as it is to absorb.
We thank you for your comment, and I just want to add to that, there are only currently 2 MIH sites that are mapped in Community District 11. Both of those are more than 2 miles east of us along McDonald Avenue. Those are officially part of Gravesend. So there are no MIH sites currently mapped in Bensonhurst. So just to echo what you were saying before.
I'm good.
Thank you. Commissioner Dweck?
I just want to clarify, maybe you know the answer to the question. Is there a C43L designation that would allow the setback from the elevated tracks?
C43L?
Right.
I don't know if that zoning district
exists,
exactly.
So your only option to have the setback would be the C44L?
Yes, this is if we looked at other comparable density, let's say R6A or R7A, those allow a minimum base height at 40 feet. So you'd be already having less quality units on the 3rd and 4th floors if we were to rezone to R6A or R7A. So it's the C44L specifically that allows that 25-foot base height.
And that's designated specifically, that was created specifically for elevated train tracks.
Correct.
Exactly what you're up against.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, with that, thank you very much for your time and your presentation. We're now going to go to members of the public who have something to say on the proposal at hand, calendar 16 and 17. We have 4 people testify or signed up to testify. We're going to start with Michael Menditto, to be followed by David Liu. Mr. Menditto, whenever you are settled in and ready on the Zoom, we will look forward to hearing from you. Do we have Mr. Menditto?
Michael is promoted and should be able to unmute.
Michael Menditto, are you there? Oh, there you are. Is that, we can see you. We can't hear you yet. Oh,
There appears to be an audio issue with the microphone.
we can't really hear your voice. Perhaps you want to take off your video and see if that works. Just do audio. Mr. Menditto, we're going to come back to you. We're going to go to David Liu next. Mr. Liu is here with us in the room. Give us a minute to give you a chance to work on the technology, and we'll see if we can bring you back next. So we're going to put a pause on you for 1 sec. Okay, Mr. Liu, welcome.
Thank you for your time. My name is David Liu. I'm an attorney representing a coalition of residents in the neighborhood that are vehemently opposed to this project. They feel that this project does not comply with the requirements of 43 RCNY subsection 6-06, specifically subsections 1, which requires that a substantial adverse change to the ambient air, water quality, or noise levels of solid waste production or erosion or flooding would be a valid reason to deny this project. Now, this project is 9 stories tall. And that means the surrounding neighborhood residents would be permanently in the shadow, affecting their quality of life, access to air and light, as well as the increase of 100 families, which is the attendant rise in garbage in an area that already has a massive rat problem and litter problem. We feel this would affect the quality of life of the residents already there. Moving forward, they feel that this also does not comply with 43 RCNY section 006, subsection 4 and 5, the creation of a material conflict with the community's existing plans, as well as impairment of the character or quality of important historical, architectural, or aesthetic qualities of the neighborhood. I realize I'm speaking very quickly, but I'm limited to only 3 minutes of time, so please bear with me. Now, this area primarily has single family and small 1 and 2 family units. Now, this building is, again, a 9-story tall structure, completely out of character with the neighborhood. These people are multi-generational families that have been here for many years, and they feel that this addition to the neighborhood would not add to it at all, to the quality and character of the neighborhood which they grew up with and which they hope to lead to their children, when they feel that this would be a negative impact. Now, we recognize that New York does have a housing shortage, but they do not feel that this is the area for it, given the character of the neighborhood, which is like single family and small 1 and 2 family residences. Additionally, under subsection 6 of 43 RCNY 6-06, major change to the use or quality of type of energy. Now, 100 families would be a massive drain on an already aging electrical grid system, and we feel that this would increase the possibility of seasonal blackouts, specifically during the hot summers. And again, that would affect the quality of life. Some of these are very elderly residents that rely on electricity to get them through the hot summers. So again, we feel that these factors are against this project. And I only have a few seconds left over. I open for the questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me see if there are any questions for you. Okay, I don't see any. Thank you very much. We appreciate you.
I'd just like to know how can I submit written objections to this?
Yes, you can submit written objections to, well, you can either hand them right to our calendar officer right now, or if you want to mail them in, you could send them to the City Planning Commission Calendar Information Office at 120 Broadway, 31st floor, New York, New York, 10271.
I will submit in person.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Okay, let's now move back. Let's move on to Jay Kwong, who is on Zoom. Mr. Kwong, are you there?
Yeah, you should be able to unmute.
Mr. Kwong, when you are ready, you can go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Good morning, everyone. Commissioner, member of the committee, just do a quick mic check and make sure you guys can hear me.
We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. So just to piggyback off of David's comment about the resident, then the quick background. I'm a resident on 72nd Street, but just to piggyback off the comment, yeah, this area is pretty much densely populated. And what the applicant failed to mention is that there's a 13-unit condo going right across the street that's near completion. And up the block on 15th Avenue, there's another 6-unit condos on the street. And on 70th Street, right next to Keyfood, there's another 13 units condo already in place. And not to mention the many converted apartments, converted houses that are serving multi-families. One family converted to 2 to 3 to 4 families that are living in these houses right now. So this area is very, very saturated. So, and adding more water to already full pot just don't make any sense. Now, the tallest building, just to fill you guys in, is on 2300 Cropsey Avenue. That's the 23-story facing the Gravesend Bay. There's nothing 9-story tall in the immediate area until we get to 86th Street along the waterfronts, and those are very, very commercialized. And for those tall buildings, everything is in line. Everything's about the same height. It looks okay. Not like the one on 7120 where a 9-story just breaks the view of everything else. Now, he mentioned that the utility building across the street is 75 feet tall. The building itself is only 4 stories tall. And on top of that is the water tower. And I believe that's maybe 20 feet water tower. So the building itself is really 4 stories and much, much less than the actual 75 feet quoted here. I just want to bring these points up. And the community board, did not view this favorably, unfavorably for obvious reasons. And also recently on 1421 86th Street, that was another 9-unit story that was proposed. That was withdrawn for the very same reason that was brought up for the trash problem, the density, the congestion, the traffic, and that proposal was withdrawn. So I see no reason why this proposal for 100 units is not withdrawn. And that site, 1421 86th Street, only had 27 units available, and this one has 100 units, and that was withdrawn, and this is still on the table. So I find that very troubling. I'm also talking very fast, just because I'm on time, so I got 30 seconds left. But yeah, I'm open to questions if you guys have any.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kwong. Let me see if there are any. Nope, we're all set. Thank you very much for spending the time with us this morning, now afternoon. We're going to go back to Mr. Mendito, who I believe is now on via phone. Mr. Mendito, are you there?
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Now, I'd like to address the affordability issue quickly. Andrew Windsor, a community board member on Community Board 11, his concern and why he objected to this proposal was that he thought that the rents on the market rate apartments would actually raise the rents for surrounding buildings in the community. So there was definitely an affordability issue, and it was brought up at the community board hearing where they disapproved of this project. The tallest building in the neighborhood is indeed that telephone company switching station on 16th Avenue. And that's an eyesore. It's a blight on the community. It's an unfortunate exception to the neighborhood. The neighborhood is extremely densely crowded already. PS 112 has a student ratio of 13-1 when the ideal city student ratio is supposed to be 12-1. And they're so overcrowded that they had to build a small one-story annex on their schoolyard to create a gym. Edward B. Shallow has a 15-1 student ratio where the ideal is supposed to be 12-1. And they're busting at the seams at 1,538 students as of 2021. New Utrecht High School is the local high school that would serve this area. And that's 17-1 student ratio when it's supposed to be 12-1. And they have 3,553 students as far as the 2021 calendar year. Also, yes, they are building a 13-unit condominium building right across the street from where this proposed 7120 site is. I believe it's 1548 72nd Street. So that's going to further add to the density. At the Community Board 11 hearing, they expressed stress on the infrastructure, that our sewer system is already over capacity, and there are 5 community boards that all use Owl's Head sewage treatment plant in Community Board 10. And the effluent is frequently dumped into the harbor during a normal day, and then where there are storms, that's where the overflow goes. So we're already over capacity, and it was damaged during Superstorm Sandy, and it was never repaired. Our electrical grid is stressed in this neighborhood. We have frequent brownouts, blackouts, and constant messages from Con Edison when there's a high demand day to conserve power. And this is overhead power lines over here. The poles are, I mean, there are so many wires already on the poles. How are we going to accommodate a 100-unit 9-story dwelling that is now going to be all electric because we're eliminating the ability to use gas? So, and my other concern also is fire response. How does the fire department serve a 9-story building? Yes.
Sir, thank you. Your
I
time
believe I was
is up.
speaking. Oh, it's up. I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
No, your time is up. Your 3 minutes. Do you want to just finish your sentence?
Yes, I'm concerned about also the ability of the local fire departments. There's 4 of them in the neighborhood. Do they have the ability to serve a 9-story building or a 9-story building that's abutting a train station L? How are they going to get, cherry pickers, cranes up to rescue people?
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions for this gentleman? Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Yiko Ong. Yiko Ong. Yiko Ong.
Iko, you should be able to unmute.
There you are.
Iko, you should be able to unmute your microphone in Zoom.
I think this is our final speaker, so.
Eco, you should be able to unmute your microphone in Zoom.
Can't seem to gain access. Yeah,
You get
call it, yeah.
No luck? No luck? Throw in the towel?
Eco, you should be able to unmute your microphone in Zoom.
Okay, we're gonna give 10 more seconds here, and then we're gonna encourage you to submit testimony in writing, and you're gonna hear the instructions just one more time as we finish up our public hearings for the day. Final opportunity. Are you there, Eco Ong? All right. With apologies, that is all that we have for calendars number 16 and 17. So we're going to close the hearing on this item. Madam Secretary, is there any more business before the commission today?
No, Chair Grodnick, there is no other business before the commission, but I do have some public information to share. For those of you who are unable to or did not wish to testify, you can submit written testimony online by selecting this hearing on the upcoming meetings page of the NYC Engage portal, through DCP's website, or by mailing your comments to City Planning Commission, Calendar Information Office, 120 Broadway, 31st floor, New York, New York, 10271.
Terrific. Terrific. Thank you very much. And with that, our appreciation to everybody who appeared before us today, taking their time to share their views. Also, of course, to all of the applicants and the commission. And we look forward to seeing the next step on a variety of these applications. And with that, we are adjourned. The time is now 12:07.